First story. Outline Commander Marcus Chen floated in the crystalline holding cell, his breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. The Draconian Empire had rules about capturing enemies alive, and apparently humans qualified as an interesting enough species to warrant study rather than immediate execution. Through the transparent walls he could see the massive forms of his captors moving through the corridors of their flagship. The dragons were nothing like the mythical creatures from Earth's legends. These beings stood 12 feet tall on powerful hind legs, their scales shimmering between deep crimson and obsidian black. Their wings had evolved into sophisticated manipulator arms, each ending in talons capable of precise work or devastating combat. Most unsettling were their eyes, ancient, intelligent, and filled with the confidence of a species that had conquered half the galaxy. Marcus had been the sole survivor when the exploration vessel Prometheus encountered the Draconian fleet near the Kepler 442 system. His crew of 37 had fought valiantly, but human plasma weapons barely scratched the dragon ship's quantum-forged hulls. The battle lasted 18 minutes. Marcus had been in the engineering section when the ship was boarded, and somehow he'd managed to take down 3 dragon warriors with nothing but an emergency cutting torch and desperate ingenuity. That's probably why they'd kept him alive. Dragons respected combat prowess above all else. The cell door hissed open and General Kazreth entered. The dragon's scales bore intricate scarification that spoke of countless battles. When he spoke, his voice resonated with harmonics that seemed to vibrate through Marcus's bones. Human, you display curiosity rather than fear. This is unexpected. Marcus straightened, meeting the creature's gaze. Fear doesn't solve problems, General. Understanding does. Kazreth's head tilted, a gesture Marcus was learning indicated interest. Your species fascinates our researchers. You possess no natural weapons, no protective armor, no enhanced senses. Your technology is primitive by our standards. Yet you fought with remarkable tenacity. We're stubborn that way. Indeed. Kazreth activated a holographic display, showing the Prometheus's final moments. You killed Warrior Vorthak with a maintenance tool. He had survived 47 combat campaigns. How? Marcus studied the replay, watching his past self desperately wielding the cutting torch. I noticed the gap in his neck scales when he turned to avoid my first swing. Anatomy, General. Every species has weak points. The dragon's eyes narrowed. You analyzed his physiology during combat? Humans are pattern recognition specialists. We evolved as persistence hunters. We don't stop and we learn fast. Kazreth was quiet for a long moment. The Empire has conquered 234 worlds. Most species surrender after their first defeat. Others resist until extinction. None have ever... He paused, searching for words. None have ever adapted during the battle itself. What happens to me now? The War Council debates this. Some advocate immediate execution. You are too dangerous to live. Others propose study. Your brain dissected to understand human tactical thinking. Marcus felt his stomach clench but kept his expression neutral. And what do you propose? Something unprecedented. Kazreth moved closer to the cell. The Empire faces a new threat. An ancient enemy has returned from the void between galaxies. Our traditional strategies prove inadequate against their unconventional warfare. Perhaps human adaptability could provide insights. You want me to help you fight a war? I want you to help us learn to think like you do. In exchange, we spare Earth from our eventual conquest. The offer hung in the air like a sword. Marcus understood the implication. Earth would be conquered eventually anyway. This was merely an opportunity to delay the inevitable while potentially saving billions of lives. I'd need access to information about this enemy. Granted, and I want to see how your military operates. Your ship designs, your tactics, your command structure. Kazreth's laugh was a rumbling growl. You would study us as you studied Vorthak. Everything can be improved, General. Even perfection. Bold words from a prisoner. Not a prisoner anymore, apparently. A consultant. Kazreth activated his wrist communicator and spoke in rapid Draconian. Marcus caught fragments. Something about the human proposal and experimental partnership. The response was clearly heated, with multiple voices arguing simultaneously. Finally, Kazreth closed the channel. You have been granted provisional status as a tactical advisor. Any betrayal will result in Earth's immediate destruction. The cell barriers deactivated and Marcus stepped out into the corridor. The ceiling was built for dragon height, making him feel like a child in a cathedral. Other dragons they passed stared with mixtures of curiosity and barely concealed hostility. "Your first task," Kazreth said as they walked, "is to observe our war games. The enemy, we call them the Void Spawn, employs strategies that defy logic. They sacrifice entire fleets for seemingly no tactical gain. Their ships are biological, constantly evolving mid-battle. Our generals are frustrated." They entered a massive holographic chamber where dozens of dragon officers stood around a three-dimensional star map. The simulation showed a battle in progress, sleek dragon warships engaging writhing, organic vessels that seemed to flow like liquid rather than maneuver like traditional craft. Marcus watched as the dragon fleet executed a perfect pincer movement, only to have the enemy vessels suddenly merge into larger forms that shrugged off concentrated fire. The organic ships then sprouted thousands of smaller craft like spores, overwhelming the dragon formation through sheer numbers. "Show me the last 15 encounters," Marcus requested. The battles played out in rapid succession. Each time the dragons fought with textbook precision and overwhelming firepower. Each time, the Void Spawn responded with completely different tactics, as if learning and adapting between engagements. "They're not using traditional strategy," Marcus observed. "They're evolving. Each battle is an experiment to them. Precisely our conclusion. How do we fight an enemy that never repeats the same mistake?" Marcus smiled grimly. "The same way humans survived for millions of years against bigger, stronger predators. We become unpredictable too. We stop fighting like dragons and start fighting like humans." Kazreth's eyes gleamed with interest. "Elaborate. Tomorrow, General. First, I need to understand everything about how dragons think about war. Then I'll show you how to think like something else entirely." As they left the war room, Marcus caught several dragon officers studying him intently. He was no longer just a prisoner or even an advisor. He was potentially the key to their survival against an enemy that had learned to defeat perfection itself. The real question was whether he could teach an ancient, proud warrior race to embrace the chaotic, adaptive nature of human warfare before the Void Spawn learned to defeat that too. Second story. Outlined 3 weeks into his unexpected role as military consultant, Marcus stood before the assembled war council in the Empire's most secure command chamber. The circular room housed 47 of the Draconian Empire's finest strategic minds, their scales gleaming under the crystal lighting. Each dragon represented centuries of military experience and thousands of victories across the galaxy. "Honored generals," Marcus began, his voice amplified by the chamber's acoustics, "your empire has conquered 234 worlds using the same fundamental approach. Overwhelming force applied with mathematical precision. This strategy has served you well against conventional enemies." General Vextos, whose scarred hide told of campaigns spanning 3 solar systems, interrupted with a dismissive snort. "Human, we did not assemble to hear praise of our obvious superiority." "You assembled," Marcus replied calmly, "because your obvious superiority is failing against the Void Spawn. Yesterday you lost another entire battle fleet. 300 ships and 50,000 dragon warriors destroyed by an enemy force half that size." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Dragons did not appreciate having their failures highlighted, especially by a member of a species they considered primitively young. Kazreth gestured for silence. "Continue, Marcus. The problem isn't your weapons or your ships or your courage. The problem is predictability." Marcus activated the holographic display showing the previous day's battle. "Watch this engagement. Your fleet forms the traditional Talon formation, approaches at optimal firing distance, and executes a textbook energy bombardment. It should have been a massacre in your favor." The replay showed dragon ships moving in perfect coordination, their plasma cannons firing in synchronized volleys that should have vaporized anything in their path. Instead, the Void Spawn vessels seemed to anticipate each move, flowing around the energy beams like water around stones. "The enemy didn't just react to your strategy," Marcus explained. "They knew your strategy before you executed it. They've fought dragons for months now. They've cataloged every formation, every tactic, every response pattern in your military doctrine." General Thirak, the Empire's most decorated fleet commander, leaned forward. "Are you suggesting we abandon 10,000 years of proven tactical evolution?" "I'm suggesting you supplement it." Marcus changed the display to show human naval battles from Earth's history. My species never achieved your technological sophistication, but we learned something crucial: the value of chaos in warfare. Sometimes the best strategy is having no strategy at all. The dragons exchanged glances, their expressions ranging from confusion to outright disgust. Military chaos was antithetical to everything they believed about warfare. Marcus continued, "Let me show you something." He pulled up footage from the Prometheus's final battle. When your warriors boarded our ship, they expected human resistance to follow logical patterns. Fighting retreats to defensible positions, coordinated counterattacks, surrender when the situation became hopeless. The hologram showed human crew members fighting with desperate improvisation, using maintenance equipment as weapons, venting atmosphere to blind attackers, even using the ship's artificial gravity to create disorienting combat environments. Instead, my people fought chaotically. A cook used flash-frozen food packets as grenades. Our botanist released genetically modified plants that grew rapidly in the ship's corridors, creating an instant jungle maze. Our children's entertainment specialist turned the ship's recreational holodeck into a nightmare of shifting terrain and optical illusions. "Madness," muttered General Cortex. "Wasteful and undisciplined." "Effective," Marcus corrected. "Your warriors were trained to fight soldiers, not madmen." Every human action was unpredictable because we were making it up as we went along. That's why one human with a cutting torch killed a veteran warrior. I didn't follow any tactical doctrine he could anticipate. Kazreth studied the battle analysis thoughtfully. "You propose we adopt this chaos principle?" "I propose we teach your forces to think like humans when the situation demands it. Keep your traditional formations and strategies for conventional enemies, but develop the ability to shift into adaptive, unpredictable modes when facing an enemy that has learned to counter orthodox tactics." "Demonstrate," General Vextos demanded. "Show us this human chaos in action." Marcus smiled. "Tomorrow I'll run a simulation exercise with a volunteer squadron. But first I need you to do something that goes against everything in your nature. I need you to trust me to be wrong." The next morning, Squadron Leader Pireth reported to Hangar Bay 7 with 12 of the Empire's finest pilots. They found Marcus standing beside a modified training vessel, its sleek dragon design now bristling with improvised additions. "What?" Pireth asked slowly. "Have you done to my ship?" "Made it human," Marcus replied cheerfully. "Or at least more human-like. I've disabled your targeting computers, randomized your engine output patterns, and installed manual control overrides for every system." The dragons stared at him in horror. Flying without targeting computers was like fighting blindfolded. "Furthermore," Marcus continued, "your mission parameters will change every 30 seconds during the exercise. Your weapons will randomly switch between different firing modes. Your navigation will occasionally provide false readings, and your communication system will periodically translate your orders into random languages." "This is insanity," one of the pilots protested. "How are we supposed to function under such conditions?" "By adapting," Marcus said simply. "By making decisions faster than the enemy can predict them. By turning chaos into your weapon instead of your weakness." The exercise was a disaster. The dragon pilots, accustomed to precision and coordination, struggled with the unpredictable systems. Ships collided during formation changes, weapons fired at random intervals, and communication devolved into frustrated roars. But something interesting happened in the final phase. As the pilots began to accept the chaos rather than fight it, they started improvising. Squadron Leader Pireth used his ship's erratic movement patterns to confuse enemy targeting. Another pilot deliberately triggered a system malfunction to create an electromagnetic burst that blinded nearby opponents. "Again," Marcus ordered as the simulation ended. "And this time, stop trying to fly like dragons. Fly like desperate humans who have no idea what they're doing, but refuse to give up." Over the following weeks, word of the strange training exercises spread throughout the fleet. Some dragons were openly contemptuous of the human chaos doctrine, while others began requesting transfers to experimental squadrons. The breakthrough came during a live combat exercise against void spawn forces. Marcus watched from the command deck as Dragon Squadron Vorth engaged a small enemy fleet, using traditional tactics. The results were predictably poor. The organic ships adapted quickly to dragon formations and began systematically destroying the squadron. Then Pireth activated Chaos Protocol. The dragon ships suddenly broke formation, each vessel moving according to its pilot's improvised plan. One ship began firing wildly while spinning in apparently random directions. Another started accelerating and decelerating erratically, creating impossible-to-predict movement patterns. A third pilot began broadcasting ancient dragon poetry at maximum volume, while flying directly toward the largest enemy vessel. The void spawn forces, which had been flowing smoothly around the dragon formations, suddenly seemed confused. Their organic ships began responding to threats that didn't exist and failing to counter actual attacks. The apparently random dragon movements were creating overlapping fields of fire that the enemy couldn't predict or avoid. In 12 minutes, Squadron Vorth destroyed an enemy force twice their size without losing a single ship. The command deck fell silent as the implications sank in. General Kazreth turned to Marcus with something approaching awe in his ancient eyes. "Human," he said slowly. "You may have just saved the Empire." Marcus nodded, watching as the void spawn retreat toward the outer system. "This is just the beginning, General. Now I need to teach your entire military to think like humans, because the enemy is going to adapt to chaos too, and when they do, we'll need to be ready with something even more unpredictable." What could be more unpredictable than chaos? Marcus smiled grimly. Human ingenuity coupled with dragon resources. The enemy learned to fight perfect warriors. Now let's see how they handle perfectly chaotic ones. Third story. Outlined 6 months after the first successful Chaos Protocol deployment, Marcus stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed hybrid warship Defiant Talon, watching the largest combined fleet in galactic history prepare for the decisive battle against the Void Spawn. 200 dragon vessels flew, alongside 50 ships from Earth's hastily assembled defense fleet, their different designs creating a magnificent tapestry against the starfield. Earth's involvement had been inevitable once the dragons shared intelligence about the Void Spawn threat. The organic invaders weren't just targeting the Draconian Empire, they were systematically consuming all sentient life in the galaxy, converting biomass into more of their twisted vessels. Humanity's choice had been simple: help the dragons develop new tactics or face extinction alone. Admiral Chen, General Kazreth approached, using Marcus's newly granted rank. The dragon's scales now bore ceremonial markings indicating his status as Joint Commander of the Alliance forces. The Void Spawn main fleet has been located, 3,000 vessels massed at the galactic core. Marcus studied the tactical display. The enemy formation was unlike anything they'd encountered before, a vast spiral of organic ships that seemed to pulse with malevolent life. Intelligence indicated the presence of something new at the center, a massive bioconstruct that human scientists were calling a hive brain, and dragon researchers termed a spawn mother. "They're not trying to hide anymore," Marcus observed. "This is their final push. Win here and they control everything from the core to the rim. Our combined fleet numbers 800 vessels. The odds are not favorable." "They never are for humans," Marcus replied with a grim smile. "That's when we do our best work." Over the past months, the collaboration between dragons and humans had produced remarkable innovations. Dragon precision engineering combined with human adaptive creativity had yielded new ship designs that could reconfigure themselves mid-battle. Traditional dragon formations were now augmented with human chaos wings, squadrons trained to operate without predetermined tactics. More importantly, the partnership had changed both species. Dragons were learning to value creativity over perfection, while humans had gained access to technology that made their natural adaptability exponentially more effective. "Signal the fleet," Marcus ordered. "All ships to assume Alliance Formation Delta." Formation Delta was Marcus's proudest achievement, a battle arrangement that combined dragon defensive strength with human unpredictability. Heavy dragon cruisers formed the formation's backbone while smaller human ships operated in seemingly random patterns around them. To outside observers, it looked like barely controlled chaos. To the trained eye, it was chaos with purpose. The journey to the galactic core took 3 days through hyperspace. During the transit, Marcus spent time with both dragon and human crew members, noting how the two species had begun to influence each other. Dragon pilots were learning to trust their instincts over their instruments, while human engineers were applying dragon precision to their improvisational designs. Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez, His former communications officer from the Prometheus, who had somehow survived the battle and made her way to the Alliance fleet, approached him in the ship's hybrid mess hall. "Admiral, some of the human crews are nervous. They've heard stories about what the void spawn do to captured prisoners." Marcus nodded grimly. Intelligence reports described void spawn converting living beings into biological components for their ships. Death was preferable to capture. "Tell them what I told the Dragon 6 months ago. Fear doesn't solve problems. Understanding does. We know more about the enemy now than they know about our alliance. That's our advantage." The final approach to the galactic core revealed the true scale of the void spawn threat. Their fleet wasn't just large, it was constantly growing. New vessels were being constructed in real time from the biomass of conquered worlds, extruded from massive factory ships like organic 3D printing. "By the eternal flame," Kazreth breathed, using an ancient dragon oath. "They're building an armada while we watch." "Then we stop them before they finish," Marcus replied. He activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Today we fight not as dragons or humans, but as guardians of free thought in the galaxy. The enemy believes order and chaos cannot coexist. Let's prove them wrong. Dragon traditional formations on my mark. Human chaos protocols on Lieutenant Rodriguez's signal. Show them what happens when perfection and madness work together." The battle began. With the void spawn doing exactly what Marcus had hoped, they deployed counter-tactics, designed to defeat either dragon precision or human chaos, but not both simultaneously. Their bioships moved to intercept the dragon formations while ignoring the seemingly random human movements. "Now, Sarah," Marcus commanded. Lieutenant Rodriguez transmitted the chaos activation signal, and suddenly the human ship's random movements revealed their purpose. They had been positioning themselves to strike at critical junctions in the enemy formation while the dragons drew attention. The first phase went perfectly. Combined dragon and human firepower carved through outer layers of the void spawn fleet like a plasma cutter. Through tissue, enemy bioships that had adapted to counter-dragon tactics found themselves vulnerable to human unpredictability, while vessels configured to handle chaos couldn't cope with dragon precision. But the void spawn adapted faster than ever before. The hive brain began coordinating responses that countered both tactical approaches. New bioships emerged that could handle both order and chaos, their organic systems shifting between different defensive configurations in real time. "Admiral," Kazreth reported, "they're learning faster than we can adapt. At this rate, they'll counter our combined tactics within the hour." Marcus watched the battle analysis scroll past on his displays. The enemy was indeed adapting, but something bothered him about their response patterns. They were becoming too perfect, too coordinated. The hive brain was imposing absolute order on its forces. "That's it," he said suddenly. "Signal all ships, new tactics. We're not going to out-adapt them. We're going to break their ability to adapt at all." "How?" Kazreth demanded. "Overload their processing capabilities. Every ship, every pilot, every gunner, start doing everything differently. Not just different from our previous tactics, but different from each other. No coordination, no patterns, no logic. Pure, absolute individual improvisation." "Admiral," Rodriguez protested, "that's not chaos protocol. That's actual anarchy." "Exactly. The hive brain is designed to find patterns and counter them. What happens when there are no patterns to find?" The order went out across the fleet. Abandon all tactics, all formations, all coordination. Every ship was now operating independently, with no predetermined plan or mutual support. To any military observer, it should have been suicide. Instead, it was brilliant. The void spawn forces, which had been responding with increasing efficiency to Alliance tactics, suddenly found themselves facing 800 completely different fighting styles. Some human pilots started ramming enemy vessels while ejecting at the last second. Dragon commanders began using their ship's artificial gravity fields as weapons. One enterprising crew rigged their hyperdrive to create localized space-time distortions. The hive brain, trying to process and counter 800 unique tactical approaches simultaneously, began showing signs of strain. Bioships started responding inappropriately, some attacking empty space while others ignored direct threats. "It's working," Kazreth reported with amazement. "The Spawn Mother is losing control of its fleet coordination." But Marcus wasn't finished. All ships, convergent anarchy on the hive brain. Every vessel attacks the center of their formation but use completely different approaches. make it impossible for them to predict or counter any single assault vector. What followed violated every principle of military strategy ever developed. 800 ships attacked the same target using 800 different methods. Some came in at high speed, others drifted in slowly. Some fired everything they had from maximum range. Others held fire until they were nearly touching the enemy. Human crews used improvised weapons while Dragon forces employed ancient ceremonial armaments they'd brought aboard for good luck. The hive brain, faced with processing this absolute chaos of input, suffered what could only be described as a nervous breakdown. Its bioships began attacking each other, their coordination completely shattered. The massive spawn mother started convulsing, its organic systems unable to cope with the sensory overload. In a flash of light that briefly outshone the galactic core's stars, the hive brain exploded. The death shriek that echoed across hyperspace frequencies caused every remaining void spawn vessel to simply stop functioning, their controlling intelligence severed. As the Allied fleet regrouped among the drifting remains of their enemies, Marcus reflected on what they'd accomplished. Two species that should have been natural enemies had learned from each other's strengths and created something greater than either could achieve alone. Admiral, Kazreth approached, the Empire's High Council has authorized me to offer humanity full membership in the Draconian Alliance. Marcus smiled. Counteroffer, General. Let's create something new. Not a dragon empire with human members or a